And the first thing on our agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Are there any changes, corrections, omissions that anybody caught or saw?
Okay. At the top, it says it was in the third floor conference room, but it was in here. That was April.
Yep.
And then, the middle of the first page, it says motion by Weiler, second by Hoggett. That should be second by Hall.
Way to go.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
All right, and I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes with those corrections.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Chair will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Meeting minutes are approved. I'm going to jump to item number 3 on our agenda. Next, the dog park issue. We can jump into that. You're here, and instead of making you sit through everything else. For background, the council approved the concept of the dog park going there. So that part is good. We have the conceptual framework in which to now work and go forward with approval. Do you want to present some stuff that you've put together and looked at first, and then we'll open up just general discussion of what others have found and kind of go from there?
Yep, I did not bring the packet that, I think everybody has that.
Do you want it?
Well, sure, if you have another copy. I just, we don't have to go through every
No.
page at all, but again, it was just based on what we have. I put together some ideas, of course, looking for other input. On just the front page, the areas are the symbols in blue would be benches in theory. The yellow are the single gates. So if you can kind of imagine having 2 separate gates at sort of that main entrance where you see the arrow. So then there would be a solid fence between the small dog area and the large dog area. And then having that double gate entry so that dogs aren't able to escape. You know, you're closing one gate behind you and opening the other. And then the double swing gates would be on either side. I guess that would probably allow mowers, right, to get in and take care of maintenance. So I think that's an important piece. What else? The budget is on the next page, and yes, the fence estimate I received just today is a little bit higher than we had anticipated. And this is standard galvanized 5-foot fence. I did think of an area or one spot we could reduce costs if perhaps in the small dog area we use a 4-foot high fence. I don't know if that's wise long term. What if you ever did want to allow large dogs to use that area? The fence might be too low. So that's something to consider. And then I just wanted to mention the grant that I don't know if anyone had time to click on that link, but there is a Pet Safe grant. The due date is June 30th. And assuming that if we could have this letter signed off on, that's part of the requirement for the city to recognize there's this section of land and they would put forth this letter on our behalf. We could fill out, as in our group, we could fill out the written portion of the application. And that could get us to $25,000, which is pretty awesome. So it's specific to establishing a new dog park in a city that doesn't have one. So, I mean, we'd be in pretty good runnings. Exactly. And then I just included a series of photos. I mean, some kind of conceptual ideas we could throw around. The water area, I guess the water station that wasn't included in this budget, maybe that's a long-term thing we could, or maybe a specific business or veterinarian clinic could sponsor something like that. And then I just took a couple snapshots of, I think, some good comprehensive dog park rules, which we could add to, we could take away. Of course, I think we don't want to have it too long where they don't read from top to bottom, but we do want to make sure those points are covered. And then the last page is an example of a dog tag from one dog park. We just talked about as an idea of adding an option to the dog license application in the city that you could check the box, please add dog park tag for an additional $15. They wouldn't have to check that box, but if they want to use the dog park. And then they could receive that tag along with their license tag annually. Of course, dog owners, if they don't live in the city, could still apply for that. And then I know we've talked about having a free will donation box too at the park. I think out-of-town visitors or just those that use it very rarely, we'd still want to have that available. Maybe just a suggested donation or a free will. But yeah, that's kind of covering the basics in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting all
Sure.
that
Well, sure, to
back
start.
together for us.
Yeah. And this is just based on one bid. I did want to mention that too.
Yep.
I've only contacted the one fence company, so it's a.
But it gives us a context
Exactly. And
to try to.
this
filter.
company did also just install last month a fence at a new dog park in the metro. So he has some experience and.
Oh,
I noticed that on that proposal,
Mm-hmm.
they only have one double swing gate in there.
Yes.
And they need two.
Exactly, I noticed that too.
Okay.
He had added the one, and then as I went and looked at the drawing, I think we would need two, because you're not gonna be able to get a mower through that single, yeah, so we're gonna have to have both entries.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, but that would have to be an addition that we'd have to ask about, yep. Yeah,
one of the things that we as a park board, I think, are gonna need to get our minds around, if you will, is the structure of how we think best to do this. In doing some of the investigation of others and the way they've done, Tom, you covered the really good one where they have an association that it's its own organization that runs it on city property, or do we want to make it a dog park that's owned and operated by the city? You know, one model would be like is going on right now with softball, where the softball association is involved in doing that. All the other associations around the community have done that because of the Hudson, North Hudson townships being separate entities that those who used would be the supporters of. So, you know, we've got the okay to put it there. We've got this grant proposal, which shame on us if we miss it. You know, I mean, so I'm throwing this out, it's open to you guys' thoughts as to how you think it would be best that we should look at organizing this in a fashion that can keep it moving forward and not get in our own way.
And is your group ready to run this in that matter?
I think I would have to talk to, the others who are also steering this. I mean,
Sure.
I can speak on my own behalf. I would love to, and I think that would be an exciting venture. I don't know if I could do it on my own, but I know that there's a lot of interest in the community, and I bet we could rally and really form a solid group.
I think so as well.
Here's an example of a user agreement that, with the Chippewa Falls. I don't know if you've had time to read it or not.
No.
But it's kind of could be a template used, that we could use, because they have the Happy Trails Dog Park Incorporated, and they work with the city on that. If you just I can make some copies or send it off to you, but that's one.
Exactly.
It's the same thing as we deal with the boosters and the different concessions. We just could do some change in some language and work with our city
Yeah.
attorney on it.
Did Catherine have any input on the best way to manage it? If an association should be running it and the city
I don't
supplying
think anyone's asked her that specific question. I honestly don't. And I think that's something we'd have to have her involvement with in directing that. But seeing as that's the way all the other organizations in this community are structured to use the parks and those kinds of facilities, and not putting the sole burden on the taxpayers of Hudson to do it, that might be the preferred way to go about doing it. And I know city staff hasn't got the time
Sure.
to do the organization part. We aren't a Recs department,
Right.
and as such, we just don't have the staffing to do it. But if an organization could form, but I do believe that we should do all we can to try and get that grant and help that come about.
Did we talk about a license being required to use a dog park in addition to a permit to be in the dog park? Is a City of Hudson dog license going to be required?
All of that's gonna be part of the, if you will, rules and regulations for how it'll operate, because it could be looked at either way. It could be looked at by a citizen of saying, well, I've already been paying my taxes here, why do I have to pay a fee that's higher than somebody living in North Hudson Township? Well, you gotta have a dog license to have your dog in town, you know? It could go either way.
Like an email I got last week and said that our boat launch fees are too high. Why, they should be free. He said, I'm a taxpayer, but all taxpayers don't have boats.
Yeah,
I don't use that boat launch, why should I pay?
yeah,
Pay for him to use it.
Right.
Why should, I don't have a dog, so why should I pay for the dog park? I'm just saying, it's,
yeah,
Right.
You're gonna get,
Well,
you're
there's a
gonna
lot-
get emails no matter what.
but there's a lot of stakeholders.
Well, if a license, one thing we had talked about is that vaccinations and everything are up to date, and the dog license helps ensure that things are in place,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Yes, and we talked about if somebody was from a different municipality and wanted to use the dog park, that they would have to be licensed in their municipality, so that we would make sure that all the dogs were up to date on their
on their shots and everything else, because
Yep.
we don't wanna spread canine disease.
would monitor that.
That's what I was wondering, how,
That's gotta be an on your own, on your honor kind of,
Or just monitoring, I mean, those who are stakeholders and enjoy the
Yeah.
park and have ownership, I mean, a sense of ownership in it, might have to do some policing, some suggesting.
but it's a health concern.
Yeah.
It's not being
exactly,
meanies,
right. You know,
but
and
it's, you know.
just, I would call your direction to the stated rules, and,
Yeah,
you know, maybe that's all you have to say, but, I think that could happen.
Mhm.
But you're right, I think there wouldn't be a way to, unless we had a digital, you know, key code entry, but, you know,
no, No.
that's ridiculous, I know.
Right.
It couldn't happen.
Well, that's how most of the rules in town are
Yeah, right, it is,
taken
on your
care
honor.
of.
Yeah.
It's on the honor
Yeah.
system.
yeah,
You know, the police aren't there to watch everybody every
No.
minute, so, if there's a problem, then we have to address it, when we see the problem.
And
Would
some of the other instance, or things that we've done, maybe not followed through with, but we, as Parks and Public Works, can figure out, we can come pretty close as to how much time it's gonna cost for seasonal, full-time, plus our equipment and mowers. We have, you know, different rates that we can get a good idea of possibly how much it might cost and for an annually, and then we can figure out if to raise the rates for the licensing, so that it would be cover the costs, kind of like our flower basket program. We figure out how much it costs to water and how much, you know, things like that. So then it's included in our operating budget, but upfront costs it gets a little tricky, so.
Absolutely.
And usually the grants will allow you to use
yeah.
labor
Yeah.
charges as
Yep,
well.
yeah, definitely. And I also think the benefit of having an association of some sort would be, you know, a cleanup. I mean, organized cleanup, and, you know, clearly not every dog owner is responsible enough to pick up after their pet, and there probably is going to be some sort of bi-weekly closure time period, maybe even weekly, depending on the use. So, you know, you can use that group of people to volunteer their time, yeah.
Well, I think it's a
Yeah.
good move forward.
Yeah.
I think, who's going, I have to ask the question, who's gonna spearhead going for the grant? You?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And
So-
we'll support you in any way that we can.
Absolutely. I'd love to draft a letter, or, I mean, the
We'll approach,
application, and then.
yeah, we'll approach Catherine
No, she doesn't.
about the organizational structure
Oh,
and see
yeah.
if she
But I
has
mean,
a.
as far as the grant
a-
part.
You know, a forewarning sign up front saying, no, you don't wanna go that way, or yes, you do, before we spend much time and energy going down that path. And I would think then that we had everything together. You guys tell me, do we need a motion?
Yep.
Or do we want a motion authorizing them to apply for the grant to go into our dog park?
Yes.
I think that would be and for lack of an organization, we'll just call you the Hudson Dog Park Association.
Sure.
As a group.
And then it says that they need a document supporting, that shows the civic leaders support
Yeah,
of the
we'll-
code. So
Exactly.
that would be signed by the mayor, is that?
Yeah, and I'll
We just
add
had
it,
a
I'll add
chairman
it
of
to
the
the
park
next
board and the
agenda.
mayor
and-
and
yeah,
Anybody
it's-
else we can grab who's around
Okay,
That was my question, is
From the
if it
city
did,
at-
if it did have to come by.
you know,
And it's
city
possible we may
manager.
already have that document in a different format for, like, our outdoor rec plan and different things. There's different documents that allow us to apply for grants, and it's
Sure,
either
okay.
usually
Yep,
city administrator's signature would probably have to be on it,
sure, yeah.
or the director's.
Mhm.
So
but
that
I can-
template-
I can get that for you. I'll
Absolutely.
look and see it.
Okay, great.
So as long as we pass it this evening, then we'll be.
Yes,
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll
so,
make a motion.
I'll second it.
okay.
Who
The-
seconded it?
I did.
Joyce.
For clarity then, what we're the motion's been made and seconded to appoint the Hudson Dog Park Association to apply for a grant for help further development of the dog park at Grandview Park.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Great idea. Thank you for the effort that you have put in and for
Yes.
taking on what you're about to. It's a
It will be
good,
great.
it's a really good thing.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
And next steps, with any other type of fundraising, you know, would that be another point to come back to next month, and then we can just kind of talk about how we could get started with that piece? You know, and how that might look, and, yeah.
Do you know when their decision process is for the grant?
I don't know that timeline, when announcements come through. I want to say it's this fall, early fall, but, yeah, but I can double check on that.
Curious.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Question. What's your timeline, or what do you see as for this to be happening? Apparently, you know, it's not, if the grant doesn't come out to this fall, so
True.
are you thinking next summer, next spring, or?
Well, personally, I mean, I think
this
the sooner the better. I mean, we have the momentum, we have the energy and the buzz, you know, going.
I'm sorry, I
But,
apologize.
So the timeline, yes, the grant would be wonderful, but honestly, I don't know if we want to count on that as the only, you know, option. So I would love to get fundraising efforts going right away and start making plans. But clearly, maybe we have some other questions with the association and how that might look. You know, maybe before we start that and spearhead that movement.
Do you see a small group from this committee to meet with, or, you know, maybe it's a dog park committee or a group to work with finalizing the layout? And, you know, I'm thinking, are you
Yes.
guys wanting a water fountain? I don't think there's any water here. That's gonna be another expense that you didn't have on there, is how
Yeah.
do you get water into these areas?
Exactly, yeah, currently that's not in the budget but that, there is a watering fountain, right, that functions right near the entrance of the playground.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's quite a distance. I
Yeah,
mean,
it would be a walk across the parking lot.
and that's okay? Are you requesting?
Yeah, I think a watering station would be an excellent addition, especially if we were able to obtain the grant, but maybe it would be an additional thing to add down the line, maybe just an extra.
Fencing first and fountain
Exactly,
second.
exactly, yep. And again, maybe there's a business that would be willing to donate, you know, I'd like to sponsor this watering station and put my name on it.
Have you touched base with Angels to see if she might have any ideas on?
I have not, but that would be a wonderful connection.
Okay. Well, if there's no further questions or discussion, we'll move on back then to the item we had of number 2, which was the paintings in the park. And the
Thank you.
Cheers Pablo had wanted to have the plein air paintings in the park, and the city council threw it back to us. And I think this is just my own take on things, is I think if they were having a plein air session of painting, an outdoor class, and said, we're gonna go to these locations and do it, there wouldn't be a problem in doing so. I think it comes more, am I correct in this, Tom? With them wanting to reserve
Kinda.
a place in the park for exclusive use by them and for their group. So for example, Vicki, if it was gonna be up on Berkmo's Park, and they said they were gonna be out, having an outdoor class on landscape painting to the St. Croix Valley, and part of that may take place with having people up in Berkmo's Park painting the valley, or people in Prospect Park painting the valley with the view, the thing they're looking for is a place with a view that isn't in their business locale.
Right.
I think that's distinctly different than them wanting to reserve Picnic Point for their use only on Saturday afternoon or Thursday evening for their business to hold a painting class in our park.
But are they
It's-
saying
it's-
exclusive?
What's
Are
that?
they saying exclusive use only? I mean,
Well,
we wouldn't
they're-
be closing off that section. I mean, I
They're
think they're-
reserving a
They're
section.
reserving the
yes,
park.
because they are gonna be closing off
So
an
if they have
area,
reserved the point of
Okay.
the park,
because they're gonna be putting up tables.
Oh, okay.
if they've wanted to reserve Picnic Point, for example, well, technically it's theirs. Well, that's different.
How long is the class gonna be?
I don't know that, but it doesn't sound long.
What'd they say, 2 hours?
They said from 11 to 2 or 11 to 1
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
But my point was gonna be, if, that's, in my mind, that's no different than the Phipps having a painting class and going down there, or the high school art class, going down there and painting. They're there because of the setting.
So are we almost better not even going down this road and saying, you know what, you're free to use the park, but you can't reserve it? Is that
And
what you're saying?
that's, to me, that seems to be the solution.
Okay.
Right
Tell 'em
now
to
it
go
does.
ahead. We're
Well,
not gonna stop them?
Let's do it.
yeah, the concerns were, how many people they were going to have, that there was going to be, you know, they were going to have 50 people or more. That's what came up at the council meeting. So, I asked, and then because we didn't have a reservation fee figured out, they wanted us to come up with a reservation fee. So the questions, so when I asked questions, the consensus seemed to be no more than 30 people at a time. And then a reservation fee of $75 to $125, somewhere in that vicinity. But they wanted us to make the decision. But the other thing that they were concerned about was the insurance. And they wanted to make sure that we involve Catherine on the insurance issue, to make sure that they have insurance to cover anything that might happen to their students.
It's just me I'm speaking for now, not you as a group. I just think that they're better off just being citizens who leave their storefront where that is, and they're going to various places to paint. And gee, if there's 25 of us, why do we all want to be here in this, you know, we'll maybe talk about some things, but guys, spread out, you know? I don't know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it,
There was a.
and then once there's a problem,
Right.
There's a story related to this, and it was in San Francisco over the weekend. It was on one of the national news stations, and it just goes to the point of this exclusivity of the park and renting it out, and citizens not being able to use it. So Pat, I think what you're looking at is, hey, they can use the park, they just can't reserve it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's
and
this isn't rocket science, guys.
yeah, you're citizens here, and you want to be,
I mean, they're not gonna be disruptive.
No.
I mean, they're painting.
Right,
Yeah.
and they know that they can't have alcohol,
Yeah.
bring alcohol with
They
them.
might prefer that solution.
and people might take their
I- I-
pictures.
But really, actually, they can
They
have
can bring alcohol.
What's
Oh,
that?
they can,
You could bring your own alcohol if you want.
Okay.
You really truly
Well,
can,
that
in
goes
the
fine.
set areas.
but they can't sell alcohol.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
can't sell it or supply it.
Berkmos, I don't think.
Berkmos,
In that
there's,
Berkmos,
Berkmos, it's on the deed that there's no alcohol allowed in the
Just
park.
seeing that you
But
could,
point being, if
that
they
you
were
could
in
bring your
places
own.
that
Lakefront.
Yeah.
we're not encouraging it, but
Because regardless of
anyhow,
what we,
that-
Have to paint
we
in my
we start
yard.
letting them rent out, we're going down that path, and that's where we're gonna get pushback, and that's where we're getting the pushback
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, you know, if it's a high school art class, it's a FIPS, I mean, hey, that's fine. And we're not gonna exclude them from being able to use our parks.
And I'm sure they're gonna be, they can be adaptive
Yeah.
on their side as well, and in maybe a year from now, it gets re-looked at when they reapply for something different,
Yeah.
but
Do the park rules have anything listed regarding assemblies or groups of people being there without a permit or without any kind of a authorized use? Is there
1,000
anything?
people or more,
Pardon?
just 1,000
The
people at one
Special
time.
event permit, when it's that large, this
Yeah.
wouldn't qualify for
this
that.
wouldn't need that.
You know, we have groups, we have large groups of, different functions come from Minneapolis by busloads. They're here 300, 400 of them at a time. They all congregate down in the park. They're playing volleyball, they're swimming, they're doing it all, and then they get on the boat, they go for a boat ride, they come back, and they're, you know, they have a picnic, and they leave. So it's happening all the
Do
time.
they rent our pavilions typically? No, they just, yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So that being said, the chair will just let the sleeping dog lie on that issue, unless,
You'll contact them then and let them know?
yeah, we'll let them know that.
The only thing I would say if we do, and I sat out, you know, for an hour or so just looking at, you know, I got a whole pages of why not to do this. You know, to have a profit, you know, business for profit in the park, and I had all kinds of reasons, so I'm with Pat.
Great, yeah,
People have every right to
Yeah.
use the park, I mean, we have it right now.
yeah.
But when you start reserving it and taking away from the citizens, I mean, the parks are for families, citizens, and for everybody, the whole community use.
Yeah.
And to take a chunk of that and reserve it for a business, boy, you're opening up a can of
Right.
worms.
Yeah,
But just to go down and use it,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah.
yeah,
we
that
all
sounds
win.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
My thing that I would, you know, suggest to them is that, you know, they wanted weekends during the summer, weekends, from 11 to 1. That's a bit, you know, it's,
Yeah.
you know, like I
Yeah, you
said,
can't.
it's prime time and, you know, in the week is prime time in the summer. You know, I hope they would respect that, and if, you know, I was down in Lakefront Park both days this weekend at 11 to 1, and it's packed. But I think there's certain areas where they could certainly fit in.
Yeah.
But, you know, I hope they respect when people are having a picnic, that they don't take a picnic table when people are coming from out of town.
And it may have to be adaptive to the way they teach their class, too, in that they may be in one spot together while something is discussed, and then they spread out and go paint for a while and come back.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, rather than it all taking place in one location.
At a specific
As a-
time. I know
yeah.
a few months ago, you know, Vicki, you talked about getting more picnic tables up at Berkmos Park, and we
Yeah.
did get a couple up there, and, you know, because of people that have lunch up there.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden, you get 20, 30 cars up there, you know, there's not a lot of parking up by the Indian Mounds.
Mhm.
No.
It would consume the whole area. So I'm saying is, you know, and maybe instead of 11 to 1, maybe, you know, 9 to 11 or something. You know, mornings are probably better for painting anyway, and blistering heat, up there on the Indian Mounds is gonna be pretty hot at 11 to 1 o'clock.
Right.
So just something to consider, maybe they could, modify their hours and maybe not so much on weekends, but maybe midweek or something.
Okay. Well,
And-
moving on, the other
Yeah.
item on the agenda then was our updates on parks, and so do you want to just go right into that?
Do we need
with-
anything on that, though, do you think? Do we need to, we don't have to report back or anything? It was referred back to us, do we just leave it as is?
I think
now?
so. We
Okay.
just don't take it up.
Okay.
Yeah, we're basically denying.
no
them the
action.
ability to rent it, but they're open to using it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, I don't know if we need
That's
a
fine.
motion for that.
Just wasn't
We're not really giving them any.
You're not giving them anything.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, sounds good to me.
Updates?
Updates, we got a lot of road construction, I know that for sure. I got a comment on one thing. We had a volunteer group last week come from Anderson Windows Factory. It's like 25 or 30 people. And there was a company that does volunteer work, sustainability, workshops for volunteer people, it's out of St. Paul. And they went up to Prospect Park and they cut buckthorn. And I went, they started like at 11:30 or 12 and they were done by 3:30. And this guy organized it so well, they had like teams, and I think that he made it kind of like a contest. I don't know if it was a contest, but those guys, I went up there and I thought, you know how it is, sometimes you get volunteers. I went up there and these guys were working there, they were cutting buckthorn.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
And we were gonna haul it, I didn't want it out to the landfill, we were gonna haul it right out to the tree service, and I went up there and we said, how are we gonna, I went up there and I was amazed at the amount of buckthorn. And I said, we said, it would take us 2-3 days to haul this out.
Mm-hmm.
So we contracted the tree service, and they have a big truck with a big clam on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a 30 to 35 cubic yard truck, and it was overflowing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It was overflowing.
I can believe it.
And if you go up there, and this is what, I know the Rotary guys have been up there,
Mm-hmm.
and if you go up to the old hospital site, there's a finger that we mow, and it goes back, and before the buckthorn came, it was kind of a view of the St. Croix River. You can see the river now.
You can.
Wow.
Actually, there's some huge oak trees that,
Mhm.
once you cut the buckthorn out, the oak trees are some big white pine or white oak or bur oak. Just huge. I was just amazed at what those people did.
That's
Great.
So then I met with some Faith Community Church people today, and they're going to possibly do a little more of that, and then they're gonna maybe do some painting on.
Hey, Tom, I got a question.
Oh.
Do we recognize them, or can we recognize them? I think that's pretty amazing what they're.
I sent a thank you, but maybe there's something else we could send as a park board.
I don't know what, but you're right.
Well, even a
Yeah, no, I mean-
acknowledgement letter.
Yeah, that,
We usually send a letter from the mayor,
yeah.
but
And same with Faith Community Church, they're coming here in a couple weeks, and,
Mhm.
they're gonna maybe paint Burton Park Pavilion, and maybe Prospect Park Pavilion, and
Great.
Buckthorn, and other
Good.
things like that. So we've been fortunate to have some really great volunteers. Just amazed, I just couldn't believe it. Take a drive up there and you'll be amazed,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Tom, one question, okay, say, what percentage of the park do you think they covered? It's 10, 20?
Percent?
We got a big problem up there,
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
tackle it, but.
I don't think it was a large percentage,
5, 10.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So we still got plenty of work to do up there.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Lifetime.
yeah, I know.
Other than that, we have finally got most of our summer help. It seems like we don't get them till, the end of May now, our college kids. So we have plenty of mowing going on, and the other big project, we are waiting for contracts to be signed for the White Camp Park
Mm-hmm.
playground, and I think Catherine's reviewing them, or
Good.
Leanne, city clerk has them now, so that should be starting here in the next few weeks. We took a few trees out and a few pieces of equipment down at Picnic Point.
Mm-hmm.
So the old playground, once we get the okay, we figure 2 to 3 days for dismantling the playground at White Camp and then getting that down here, and then the excavator will be up and he'll be starting his excavating, and then we'll start reinstalling that new playground up there. So I'm hoping the next month we should have that done.
That'd be phenomenal. That really will.
For Booster Days, everyone's probably noticed the Vine Street project is in the middle of the bathhouse parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, the river was I think it's projected to be at normal water level by next Monday. So Friday, they have plans to install one more manhole in the middle of the parking lot and get the pipe to the river. So then they would be able to have that restored and paved before the Booster Days. I think the carnival's plans to be there like June 27th for the.
Okay.
June
So-
27th is the Minnesota Orchestra too, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So, so we're hoping that they get started on that parking lot by this Friday, and we'll have that done. If it doesn't get completed, if they have problems, we're gonna move all the pipe. We have a plan to, so the carnival everything will function.
And this Thursday is our first concert in the park, starting up. I apologize, I didn't get the concert schedule. I don't know if
okay.
you got it online, but it's available online, so. This Thursday, after hours, big band, starting.
Anything on the dike? That,
The grant, we have some grants applied, we applied for
Mhm.
some grants for that. I think we're still waiting to hear.
okay.
That would be, I think, the fund, if we were awarded the grants, I think they're probably for next year.
Okay. I've had no calls, emails, or complaints from anybody about the spring in the gardens or in the parks. You know, the compliments on the bee thing.
A lot of articles in the paper. We're planning to get, I'm trying to get a hold of the Rotary. Scott Wagner, has he been around?
Scott, he had some surgery done, so.
Oh,
that's
'cause he's
probably
not
why I
answering
didn't
emails.
hold of him.
So I don't know, we're ready to plant that hillside, you know, the Rotary was gonna do that. I don't know who would be next up. I've emailed him a couple
That
times.
Buck was handling that.
I could, Buck Malik, would he
Yeah.
be another guy to?
Well, Buck's
think-
not,
I thought he was-
mean, I can report to the club on Thursday.
Do you wanna, you know, see if you guys can round up a few guys? I think we have to just, you know, rake it up and get
The
the seed.
pollinator project, right?
Yeah, yep, it's wildflower.
Okay. Yeah, when do you wanna do it? As soon as possible?
Yeah, this is the time it should be done in next week.
All right. Yeah, I'll,
I would've said, you know, a few guys for a
Actually-
few hours, we could get it done.
actually, the incoming president, John Malberg, was trying to get a hold of me today. We're playing telephone tag, so we'll probably be talking tomorrow. So I'll have him, I don't know if I think he might take over this next week or so. It's usually in the middle of June.
Yeah.
We transition, so.
That'd be great.
2, 3 guys, basically.
Yep, for a few hours.
Yeah, I'm sure it can get done.
All right.
All right. Or gals, I should say.
Picnic Point, we had talked about wanting to re-rip wrap and do some other work down there. With the boat launch now being open, is there any other work that you have scheduled down there that is gonna be,
We have some funds for riprap around Picnic Point. We're gonna try to get I was gonna have the city engineer help me get an estimate. I kinda mentioned 50,000. He said, I don't think that's gonna go very far. But I think the first step, you maybe get an estimate and then we'll have to go through another permit application like we did on the dike
Yeah.
repair.
with the boat launch is all in good shape and it was easy spring for runoff. I mean, we didn't have that much river crust
Yeah,
to do damage.
I do know that we have some money for more concrete ramps, but to do it the right way, you have to just about put pilings in,
Oh,
suck the water out, you know, grade it, and then put these ramps down. That's more money than we
Yeah.
had planned for.
yeah.
So we're gonna have to maybe, I think I have some estimates for it. We'll have to, you know, maybe ask for additional funding for that. For next year, I think for capital projects, I'll take what we have and see if we can get some additional funds for that. Same way with the riprap.
Because everything looks like it made it through the winter beautifully. It's been a great spring, summer so far for growing grass, and everything else really looks grown in well and looks good throughout the parks. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, up by your place, there's one bee garden up there that the people really took some
Didn't they?
ownership of.
if you go by it would be if you're on 11th Street, you've turned off a Vine in the park, it would be on the northeast corner of the park where Cole Street intersects it there. It's right on the corner before all the construction equipment and everything else, but they did a garden area that's as big as this table enclosure, and they've been taking care of it. It really looks nice, and they've really gone all out on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice to see.
Yes, I think so.
It's nice that the people have ownership in the parks. I see people losing it down here, but when I go up to Prospect walking, I see people out in Prospect all the time. You know, we're so fortunate. If there's no other items for future agendas, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.